Hello all, it's been a while since I made a video. Usual, not doing much over the winter period, but also stuff that came into the workshop like the ex-Northwestern Motorcycles race bike, which belongs to my friend Phil. The engine in it was one I'd lent him, and we'd finally come to an agreement that I would sell him the engine. Then he had a problem with the engine, which involved me having to change the camshaft. That was a load of work I didn't film. A friend then asked me to help him out with his wife's Mark V Golf, which was a slipped timing chain issue resulting in a set of bent inlet valves, and the result of that is I now hate modern Volkswagen engineers with a passion. The thing is a complete nightmare to work on, and took really quite a long time to sort out. It has now left under its own power. Somewhat to my and the owner's surprise, given all the difficulties we had getting information, accessing completely inaccessible fasteners, having to buy special tools. It had a misfire before it slipped the timing chain, and the last thing we did was change coils and coil packs, and hopefully that's now fully sorted. But let's go and have a quick catch up on the Excel project. So here's the Excel, which as you can see at the moment is shoved right up against the wall, and I haven't really done much with this since I repaired the door beams. We're very close to being able to put the chassis together, but if I pan left, oh look, there's another Excel. Now the story behind this car was that I didn't actually have a vehicle suitable for taking my mother any distance. The little G-Wiz is a great local runabout. Mum finds it really easy to get in and out of, but realistically you don't drive it on roads that are over 40 miles an hour, and although it has a probably 30 plus mile range, all the places I want to go that are more than about 5 miles away would require me to drive on higher speed roads, so I don't use it for that. And Mum finds it difficult at her 92 years of age to get in and out of my van. We'd actually tried getting her in and out of the Excel, which she didn't find difficult. So when looking to buy another road vehicle, I went out and bought another Excel. Now this was advertised for sale down in the southwest of England for what I thought was a reasonable price, but making some inquiries with the seller and looking at the mileage history, although the cam belt hadn't done very many miles, it was well out of date because it's a 3-year belt change interval recommended. So I negotiated delivery in the asking price and did the cam belt myself, which is not a particularly difficult job, but I discovered some little issues with the car, its previous history. They have a fiberglass ducting system for the radiator, and the original under tray was missing and replaced by a bit of rusty steel. There was an advisory for some play in the steering, which was put down to wear in a steering rack in a joint. And having finally got rid of the Golf, I took the opportunity to get this car up on the lift, and yes, there was a little bit of play in the steering rack. However, it was quite minor, and didn't explain the majority of the play in the steering, which turned out to be down to a disintegrating lower universal joint in the column. So people will tell you that getting the steering rack out of an Excel or even an Elite or a car is quite difficult, but actually it's pretty easy if you simply make the decision you will remove the radiator first, which in itself is not a particularly difficult job. So that's what I did. Took the steering rack out, got the column out, decided the radiator was not in great condition, and so I made a trip up to the excellent guys at Lotus Bits and came home with a radiator, steering column, lower section, and a second-hand radiator under tray. So you actually see with the radiator out, there's actually quite a lot of room in here. I had to straighten the bridge down there that the oil cooler sits on. The oil cooler doesn't have to be removed, you can just hook it up out the way. It's had an intermittent ignition fault, which was just a bad connection somewhere, so I've had the entire ignition system apart. I've had the distributor off because there was a nasty splice in the wiring. Getting the distributor off these is not too difficult if you remove the airbox. And a big tip on the airbox is to get yourself some flanged nylock nuts, which means you can dispense with the washers, which are somewhat difficult to get on and off. And I shall be doing an oil and filter change, which again, having the airbox off means accessing the filter is that much easier. Now it turned out, because these are hand-built cars, the way the under tray is fitted varies, probably between cars, certainly between batches, and in order to change some of the fixing methods, I removed the headlamp, which is easy, just actually on this type of bucket, one screw, which then allowed me to remove the pivot bolts, which means I can move the pod back and I can get inside, and you can see some of the holes in there that are involved with the under tray, and I took the opportunity to clean out all the rubbish that had collected in the headlamp recesses. And I shall shortly be putting the radiator back in, but in the meantime I had to do a little bit of work on the radiator and the ducting. Well, this is the old radiator, and you can see that the fins are disintegrating on it. There should be a pressed steel rail on both the top and the bottom of the radiator. The bottom one is completely missing, and so I bought a record and upgraded to 3-core radiator from Lotus Bits. Now these come supplied with mounting brackets, but you to cope with variations in Lotus's builds, you have to get the brackets to fit in the right position, and I've got the whole thing trial fitted to the radiator duct. On this particular duct, they've got the air horns mounted inside the duct rather than on top. This whole assembly is upside down, and then if I can get this up one-handed, roughly in version. this is the under tray. You can see that it's quite a narrow entry into the radiator. That's how the arrangement sits, and it's the fixings between the lower tray and the body that I'm sorting out at the moment, and also the cooling fans for the radiator. Lotus Bits will supply you with these mounting rails that go between the upper and lower channels, and you adjust the spacing to suit your fan arrangement. They had 2 or 3 fan arrangements over the years. I'm still sorting out what I want to do. I was going to use the original fan setup, but the fan shroud is not in great shape. I have earlier style fans, but motors aren't too good on those. I've got these fans which I am not entirely sure where they came from, that I may make up a support frame for, but that's where we are at the moment, and in an even messier than usual workshop. But I hope to get the radiator and fans and ducting all installed in a couple of days and have a usable car again.